everybody.
Good evening and welcome to our very first Facebook Live. This is Alema and I'm G, and we are Manuia Group, and we are excited to be here with you tonight. This is a very special time of year where many families are gathering, some virtually even, and expressing gratitude. And so tonight we'd like to share a blessing with you on how you can help get your son or daughter's education paid for. So we will spend about 5 to 10 minutes kind of sharing some information. We'll talk about the cost of attending college, the resources that are available, and how an Ivy League education can be cheaper than your community college. So I'll turn the time over to Alema and he'll get us started.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you and show you a graphic. It'll kind of give you an idea of what school costs.
So sometimes seeing this graphic can be a little sticker shock for parents. And so it's interesting that when we think about going to college, we're not really understanding all the expenses that go into paying for an education.
That's right. So what I've done is I've just pulled up all the expenses that you could possibly pay for when a student attends university. And I've selected a few of these schools so we have a little bit of an understanding between maybe a state school, government school, a private school, and you can kind of see what the differences are. And so since we're on the West Coast, I selected UC Berkeley, and then I selected Stanford, and then I selected Harvard, our only East Coast university, and then BYU, because we're here in Utah, and many of our people we work with love BYU. So I put that information there as well. So on the left here, we have listed all the expenses. And then, for example, for UC Berkeley, a California resident would have to pay probably $39,550 per year. And these costs are per year, so that's 2 semesters. And this is actually pulled from last year's numbers. So California resident, about $40,000. A non-resident, non-California resident, almost $70,000. For Stanford, you have their cost at $78,000, and if you look at Harvard on the East Coast, those are 2 very big cities, right? So you have the city of San Francisco, city of Boston, Massachusetts, very expensive cities. So those are the costs, about close to $80,000 per year. Here in Utah, if you're LDS, you're paying about $19,000, almost $20,000. And if you're non-LDS, you're paying about $25,000, almost $26,000 per year. And so if you've ever seen these numbers before, it may come as a shock to you as to just how much school is.
Yeah, like that non-resident tuition, that's a pretty big jump, right? If you are a California resident attending a UC school, but then you're coming in from out of state, gosh, that's a $30,000 difference, and that can certainly add up.
You got to really love Cal Berkeley to go to school and pay that much,
right?
But to each parent, it's all relative. It depends on where you're coming from and what you're looking to achieve with your child.
And that room and board, that really adds up as well. That's almost, just as much as tuition in some cases, paying for that.
It is. And so, and in a lot of schools, a lot of people don't know that if you're looking for financial aid, and we're going to talk a little bit in detail about what's available out there. Board and room, if you were to handle tuition books, that's great. But that's not even talking board and room, which is another expense, probably just as expensive as the tuition and books. So all these things need to be considered. And I guess the reason why we're showing you this first It's just so you can get over the sticker shock of just how much things actually cost and how much mom and dad will have to be pulling out of pocket.
Yeah, I get a text almost every other day. Hey, mom, can you sport me like $50, $150, $200? And I'm wondering, like, wow, this could really add up if tuition, fees, room and board, because those are just incidentals sometimes that your kids call and need some help with.
And you think you're covering all your expenses, but it really doesn't paint the entire picture, because after you've gone through a full year of school, and now you're getting ready to do your taxes and that kind of stuff, and things really add up. Those incidentals really do add up.
They do. So maybe we can talk a little bit about some other schools that we had looked at.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll move that over. Let me just. Okay, this is a good one. This is a great shot to show you. Okay, so what we have here is another 3 schools that I've pulled their information from, so that you can kind of get a feel for what they offer and what school costs at the military academies. So what I have here are the Naval Academy. We have the United States Military Academy, which is the
West Point,
which
right?
is at West Point, New York, and that's the Army. And then you have the Air Force Academy, which is up in Colorado. So great schools, really competitive with the Ivies. The degree you get from these schools is incredible. Like, you flash this degree and people are hiring. They're jumping over themselves to hire you. But look at the cost.
Yeah, it's even more than some of the, I guess, more prestigious schools that we think about.
Yeah, it's more than
Stanford,
more than
Harvard,
more than MIT. $105,000 a year is what it costs to go to school there. So that's the expense. And you have all your expenses here. We've totaled all that up, and they're roughly around the same. But let me tell you a little bit about the advantages of an academy. One of the advantages is best to apply to school and not enlist. So that's for my family out in American Samoa. So many of our families there in American Samoa, they get what it means to serve the country, the military. Because many of the kids, they enlist. Mm-hmm. But many of those kids, they don't realize that they have the grades to actually apply and get in and get a degree from one of those academies. And the beauty about having those degrees and not enlisting is that the the study that you're able to, the degree you're able to get from those schools are incredible. They're engineering degrees, they're math degrees, and all these have something to do with the military. You also get a chance to play a sport if you're athletically inclined. Yeah. You can play a sport as you're going to school. When you graduate, you become an officer. And that's one of those great things that you get developed as a leader. And when you're an officer, you're now leading men. And when you're an officer too, you start to make more money. So they're saying on average, the graduate that comes from one of those schools is making about $70,000 a year. Wow. Right after graduation.
70,000. That's a lot.
And that's during their 5-year commitment. So if you're going to go to school there, you are committing 5 years of service in the military service. But you're going to make it about $70,000 a year.
And no loans, right?
And so I was going to get to that, and I probably should have said that first. Very expensive school, right? Right. The main point is none of it's you have to pay for. So it's free tuition, all those expenses paid, even for college sport. If you're going to play a sport for one of those academies, everything's paid for.
So interestingly enough, Alema, you're saying $105,000 a year is the value times 4 years.
times 4 years. So we're looking at
420,
400,000 plus.
420,000 value of that education.
So it's one of those things that not many people know about.
Okay.
And there is a lot of information needed to understand about the admissions process. But if you can decipher that, and that's part of what we do as a education consultants, is to teach you the process of admissions to not only the Ivy League schools, but these great academies where if you were to come away with a degree, you will not be hurting for a job for the rest of your life, really.
That is fantastic. So many of our kids don't realize that enlisting, you're doing service, and if you're already committed in that sense, maybe actually going and applying to school might be a better route for them.
That's right. There's all kinds of ways, and a lot of people think that you need to go to another university, maybe do the ROTC program, and serve that way. But when you enroll and get admitted to an academy, you're starting your training immediately. You're going to be an officer at graduation. One of the other things too I forgot to mention was that, say you're playing rugby or you're playing some Olympic sport, and the national team or even a professional team comes and asks you to come play for them. You can actually, they actually allow you to go play because you have an exceptional talent to go play, and a lot of that time as you're playing gets counted towards your 5-year commitment.
Wow.
So you can actually go play for the rugby team, the national team, the Eagles, and then have all that time count towards your commitment.
So you can play a sport, get a top-notch education, get it paid for, get a job after. That's a phenomenal opportunity for our kids out there.
Not too many people know about, but a lot of our kids, a lot of our people, our Polynesian community, they get the military. They get that, wanting to serve and the honor that it brings to a family. And so they should know about these opportunities. They should know that they don't have to always enlist. They can actually apply to go to these schools, get trained, become officers, and not be one of those that have to be led because you're an enlisted person, but be immediately a person developed for leadership. And now you're leading people right out of college.
Nice. So we've talked about a few schools and the cost of going to school. Let's talk about some of the resources that are available.
Sure.
All right.
We'll share that screen. Okay. So financial aid resources, and that's the reason why most of you have tuned in, is to find out
where's the money?
Where is the money? Exactly. So let's kind of go over those right now. And this would be available at any school that you apply for here in the United States. The very first resource that you have is the government resource, the government aid. Well, this is what when you've heard of the word FAFSA, that's the acronym for Free Application of Federal Student Aid. That's where you apply online, and based on what you put on your application as far as what your family, your household makes and stuff like that, the government does a calculation and they give you grants and loans. And sometimes this is enough to cover school, and other times it's just a part of it.
Right.
And so you're often wondering, where else can you get help?
How can you make up the difference, right?
Yep. So number 2 is university aid. And university aid is those endowments that schools have, and they are able to help you with either scholarships. And so what we have here is merit-based scholarships, right? So there's 2 types. There's the academic profile that they do on you. So once you apply for that scholarship, you put together your academic profile, and they are able to do a calculation and award you. And sometimes that pays for everything, and sometimes it doesn't pay for everything. So you're still looking. The other merit-based scholarships are the athletic scholarships, and those are the ones you hear about all the time. especially in football, college football, guys are offered full athletic scholarships, full rides, and that's a lot of money. But I'm here to tell you, they don't give as much money as some of these other scholarships,
Options, right?
these other options that I'm about to share with you. Okay, so that was number 2, university aid. That was merit-based. That's both academic and athletic scholarships. So the third one would be university aid as well. This is from the university endowments, and it's called need-based financial aid. And some of these schools, very elite schools, they have enough in their endowments, including there's some schools that have upwards of 30, 40, 50 billion dollars.
Wait, did you say billion?
Billion.
Not millions.
No, not
billions of dollars.
And we'll show you a graph here in a minute.
That's crazy.
Yeah, billions of dollars. They can't find enough kids to give this money away. And so they're looking for minorities, they're looking for women, they're looking for people who are underrepresented to give this money away to, but there aren't enough of us applying to get this kind of aid. Now, in this kind of aid, the needs-based financial need, I've now discovered that they give a lot more money in aid to them than, say, an athletic scholarship. An athletic scholarship pays for so much, but there's some things it doesn't pay for. And we've been able to learn that, some of these expenses outside, especially incidentals, is covered by needs-based.
So I think that's kind of where the thought came from, how an Ivy League education can be cheaper than community college, is that these colleges actually have tons of funding that are needs-based. So when our kids actually get admitted to school, it's not based on if they can afford it or not. And certainly it's very expensive, as we've seen, right? $80,000 times 4, $360,000 that we've got to cover. That certainly is not chump change. And so for us as families to be able to get this kind of funding is huge. It's a game changer, I think, for a lot of our kids, many who don't even think outside a state school or a community college, knowing mom and dad can't afford to pay for these funds. So what a great blessing. That certainly has been in our family, and we want to share more so that other families can take advantage of this opportunity.
So we shared with you the 3 types of financial aid that are out there, and that's awesome. But not every school's set up the same way. Not every school has the same amount of aid as, say, another school. So I'm thinking the number 1 school with the biggest endowment in the world is Harvard. Harvard has 44 billion.
Gosh, that sounds
last count.
Like so much money. I can't even believe that that's the amount of money that these universities have to offer.
So I'll tell you the biggest, just so that you can get a feel for it. Now, everybody underneath that list, there's probably a top 20 list of schools that give the most financial aid, especially this merit-based, especially this needs-based financial aid. These schools fight hard to take care of all your needs financially. Sometimes they're able to do it, but I'll show you a list here in the next few seconds about those schools. You can get a feel for the names of the schools and start doing your own research. And it really is important to get on that website, look under tuition, look under financial aid, and start reading about that free money that's out there. And you families, and they're telling us about 150,000 per household. 150,000 will get you a lot, if not all, your school paid for at some of these schools. And then if they're making more than that, they'll still try to help you, just be prorated based on their calculations, unique to each school.
Right. A lot of them have what they call a no loan policy, that they don't want to put these kids in debt. They do not want to see them graduate with huge amounts of debt. And so they do help them in most ways that they can. And so for our community, for our families, it's just a blessing to know that there is no limit. If our kids are working hard, if they're putting in the time over the 4 years of high school, why are we not putting them in a better position to capture these blessings?
You know, there's a lot to be said with starting early. So if you're talking to your kids and you're preparing them mentally, getting that mind straight where they're going to go about their work, they're organized themselves, they're willing to pay the price and to really get their grades and manage their grades, man, why not? Why not aim them towards getting some of these scholarships so that the school can get paid for and taken care of?
And that's why we jumped into this work, is having 2 kids, one at Stanford, one at Harvard. We realized there's so many of our kids that could be there, you know. And so when we learned about these processes, it was our mission to share it with families that could benefit. And that is why it's such a blessing for us to be in this position to help others. So I think we've kind of talked a lot, Alema. Maybe we could take some questions. There are some questions here in the chat. And one is asking, is it a 5-year commitment after graduation? And I'm assuming that was for Army, right?
Yeah, for the academies, it is a 5-year commitment. If you're a pilot, it's a 10-year commitment. And understandably so. That's a lot of investment they're doing in training you to fly planes. They ask for a 10-year commitment, but the rest, 5-year commitment. And you can mitigate some of those just by being really good at a national sport, you know, where the team would actually. So there's guys actually playing on the USA rugby team that are getting paid to play, right, and it's counting towards their 5-year commitment.
You know, when we were talking with the coaches of these academies, it's phenomenal, the program, the leadership, the accountability, all those great skills that you want your kids to have, that you try to teach them. You know, this is what they're learning at these academies, and to come away and be prepared to lead the sons and daughters of this nation, that's phenomenal. You got to hand it to them.
Yeah, it takes a certain mindset. You know, it's not for everybody.
Right.
I understand that. But we know that if you're prepared, you can take advantage of some of these opportunities. So I'm going to share my screen with you again. Kind of go over this list of schools that offer financial aid.
Right. One of our questions was, do you have any information for Cornell financial aid? So let's see if we can find Cornell on this list here.
So what you see up here is the top 50 schools that give out this needs-based financial aid, merit-based financial aid. And so last year, Columbia University gave out the most. It usually gives out a package of $55,521.
To each student?
It gave that much to 2,900 students.
Almost 3,000 students got $5,500 or $1,000.
And
wow.
So, yeah, they were able to take care of students whose full need was met. 99% was what they were able to do. Yale University is right behind them at 52,000. This is per year, guys.
And that's just average. So that means, based on your financial need, there were some that got more than that.
Some that get more. Well, like I said, you know, we did some investigating ourselves and pulled up some numbers, and that was way above 55,000, upwards of 70,000, 75,000. And so look at some of these schools. We know the Ivies, right? Columbia, Yale, hear these names all the time. Harvard University, Duke University, University of Chicago,
Princeton.
There's Princeton there.
Dartmouth.
There's Dartmouth. There's Stanford.
Georgetown, Brown.
So University of Southern California.
That's awesome.
Who would have thought University of Southern California gives out money like that?
And here are the percentages on that side of the students who had need. 100%, 99%. I mean, that's phenomenal that they can take care of the students like that?
Let's look at the second part of the list. Get a feel for these schools. Washington Lee University, Smith College, Pomona College, Middlebury College, University of Notre Dame,
Wow.
in Indiana. There's Trinity and Wesley, Swarthmore in Pennsylvania. These are small liberal arts schools, right? And like I said, we're just talking about money. It's gonna be really important that you think about fit too,
Right.
and the college that you're gonna be attending, what degree you're trying to obtain as well. That all matters. But if you're looking at one of these, we got a list here of 50. One of these
Right.
schools got to be very applicable, and you could very easily find a fit.
And Cornell is on there, number 34. Their average was $46,000. 100% need base was taken care of.
So that's 6,390
Wow, 6,000
students receiving need-based financial aid at Cornell.
My goodness.
So, sorry. And let's look at the bottom half of that list. See if we can recognize any other schools. These are all small colleges, right? Colorado College, Skidmore College, Bryn Mawr up there in Pennsylvania, University of Richmond, Carleton, Grinnell, Lafayette. There's Northwestern there in Chicago, right? Illinois. There's
Nice.
Bates, Pitzer, Colby, Tulane. So I know some people from, is that Louisiana? I see that a few people from Louisiana have joined us. Reed College and Davidson College. So that's 50 schools that pay for a lot of schooling.
Yes. So not just Ivy League. There's a lot of programs out there.
If it comes down to it, there's no excuse for not going to college. I mean, money cannot be one of those excuses, because if you were to, prepare yourself and get the grades, get the ACT score, you can go to one of these schools and get school paid for.
I think the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. And certainly we found a way, and we hope that we can help a lot more families out there with kids that are academically inclined to put together, package them in a way that they can receive this type of funding and move forward with their goals. So if there's any other questions out there that we could help with at this time, we'd certainly be open to doing so.
So, time is now 7:20. Oh, 7:30. Okay.
New Orleans.
That's right. Tulane's in New Orleans. Feeling like some crawfish right now.
That would be good.
So really, our family that's out there, our community, Polynesian community, there's tons of resources. And if you have a child that's academically inclined, there's ways they can get school paid for and go to a great school where they're feeling great about flashing that degree after graduation to an employer, and they get hired.
Especially when it was paid for, right?
That's right. Having it all paid for, man, I'm sure every family could use some help in that regard, especially if you've got multiple kids. Man,
Yeah.
Some of you talented families got more than 2 or 3, 4 kids that could do stuff like this, have great GPAs, have great ACT scores, and they could use the help as far as getting school paid for. So do your research, but most of all, let us know how we can help. Here at Manuia Group, this is all we do. We're educational consultants. We help kids go to the great schools that are out there in the world, and they need help because some of these applications are very complex. Yeah. And really, that's where our strength is the application. And then the process usually starts freshman year, because, and people ask, why do you have to start thinking about college freshman year? Well, the whole reason you want to start thinking about college is because freshman year, sophomore year, these are the years, these are prime years where you start getting involved in your community, your high school community, your church community, and start doing the activities that will build your history of the things that you're passionate about in your application. Your application, you start opening those things up second term, or actually the last term of your junior year. And when you start opening those things up, you start reading the writing assignments that are being required of you. You want to have
A resume of activity.
The spring full of experiences where you were involved in service and leadership. Those are the types of things that are going to be important in the application. You can't do that last minute senior year. You can't do it even in your junior year.
That's right. You
have to show a history of these things starting from freshman year and sophomore year. So that's why it's so important to get organized nice and early.
I agree, Alema. And I think that's what we've learned as we've just come off a conference, is that they can get perfect ACT scores, they can get perfect GPAs, but they don't want that. Colleges are looking for kids with passion and purpose.
Can you believe that?
Yes.
A perfect ACT, a perfect SAT doesn't get you in.
Yeah.
So what gets you in?
So, when we think about our kids here in Utah, our Polynesian community, faith-based community, those that have purpose, those that have a voice that need to be heard on these campuses. And now we see the funding is available. We really encourage families to step up and to help their kids be this power and presence that is needed on these college campuses and prepare for their future, right?
We, as part of the accreditation of being an educational consultant, we're members of the IECA, which is an Independent Educational Consultant Association, and we aspire to certain best practices. And a lot of those things have to do with not just treating people right, but making sure you have the knowledge to share with these families that need help. So one of the requirements is to visit schools. And up to this point, November 2020, we'll probably visit up to 80 schools.
80
universities, right. So at each of those visits, this is what I do. I'll sit down with an educational, with the admissions officers. I sit down with rugby coaches, football coaches, volleyball coaches, and basketball coaches. And I'll sit down with them and get a feel for the type of student they're looking for. And then the other thing we do, we always do a campus visit. And then if I can, I always sneak in to either a grad school tour and a session. And that's usually the MBA program with law school. So this is what we do at each of those schools. So with each of those schools, each time we sat down with admissions officers, they're begging us, please help us find Polynesian, that's number one. People from Utah, that's number two. Women, that's number three. What's our fourth one?
The STEM programs, I think.
Really STEM programs is the other thing that they're looking for. So if you got any of that in your house, any of that kind of stuff.
Or we can cultivate that as well. Cultivate it.
And you have the ACT and GPA as well. You're trending that way.
Yeah.
Man, these guys can't get enough of you. And so, man, it'd be really sad. It really saddens us when we hear that, we so-and-so had the goods, but didn't know and ended up going to, a school, community college or something like that, but they didn't know they could have got a school paid for completely and come away with a degree that, man, they could flash to anybody and they would hire them on the spot.
So we had another question come in. Are needs-based assistance determined strictly by financial needs, or is there an academic requirement? And yes, there is an academic requirement. Basically, you have to be admitted, right, to the college to receive the financial package. And so those admissions will fluctuate depending on the college. And certainly we can look that up for you families that are interested in getting your son or daughter to any one of these schools. We can look at the baseline and help you understand what would be a good match for your child.
Yeah, part of our process in working with families is we do an initial consultation where we interview the students and the parents based on everything that they've done, right? So we find out what the academic minimums were achieved,
right.
ACT and GPA, and rigor types of courses taken, that type of stuff. And we do, an evaluation on what would be the best way to package you, right? Because each of you are unique, but each of you have a story to tell, and that's the beauty about these academic applications.
Yeah.
These that no one else can tell your story but you. But what we have you do, and that's the reason why we have you start nice and early, is that you start to journal these experiences so that by the time you get to junior year, last term, you're ready to open up those applications, start getting a feel for it. You have a wealth of stuff that you can't wait to put down so people know exactly who you are and what you're about. It's very important to know who you are. And that is one of those prime indicators where we know whether you're going to have a good application or not.
It's true. As we were learning of the admissions and how they go through each applicant, it's basically not you against another person. It's you against you. And what I mean by that is they want to see your voice, your passion come out. And it's not just in your personal essay. They're going to cross-check that with your letter of recommendation and see if your teachers kind of felt that, or see if your coach kind of felt that, or maybe a mentor as you're growing up. And so all of these pieces fit together and complete that entire story. And so it's important the way you piece together all three of those: the resume, the letter of recommendation, as well as your personal essays, to where you become the best version of yourself. And you then become a stronger candidate when someone who maybe got a perfect ACT doesn't even know what they're passionate about yet,
So it really comes down to who are we bringing on campus? Who's this person we're going to bring on campus? What kind of impact are they going to make on our campus? So if you look at that way, you're not trying to tell them what they want to hear on that application. You're trying to tell them what you're going to do.
What you're about.
What you're going. Once you get on that campus, watch what I not only do to the campus, but watch what I do with my degree after you give it to me. So this is the attitude that these campuses are looking for, and we're just trying to relay to them. If you're about this kind of stuff, and it really is, we already showed you the cost, but we've shown you a few things so that you can get a feel for, especially you parents, organizing your family in a way that you can maximize, whoever comes through the family, right? And whatever talents that they have. It really is a mindset of trying to empower them so they can be exactly who they were meant to be. They had the divine potential on bringing in some of the religious values that we kind of believe in, but that's really where it's at. It's about, children understanding who they are and what and where their source of power is, and becoming who they need to become,
Absolutely. We had a question here. Why do colleges want students from our Pacifica communities attending their institutions? And we kind of talked a little bit about that. But what I find too is that they would like access. They would like to learn, and they would like to kind of see those gaps that maybe they're missing. I find, especially this year, we are becoming more sensitive to the views of all of those around us. And so when you're looking at colleges only having a 0.06 representation of communities, they're dying to have more representation. In addition, these academies are dying for our people to lead our people, to be leaders. And so I'm just grateful that we have the opportunity to step up and to accept this blessing and to really make it known, of our passion and our purpose and our culture and our kindness and our hospitality, all those things that can benefit society is what we bring to the table. And I think they recognize that and they value that.
They, one admissions counselor kind of put it to me in a simple way. They said, you know, our world is broke. And on our campuses, we have all this very popular, majority of the campus feel this way, and they know how to solve their problems this certain way, right? And what they ask for is, we need another way to be on that campus, to be working with other students, other professors on ways to fix the world, right? And they're not getting enough of that side. And I don't want to call it what's that, but I do know it's our Polynesian. And I think our Polynesian background and our culture, right? Very strong culture. We believe in a lot of things, right? Family, respect. We consider all other people's opinions. We're inclusive. We look out for others. We're natural protectors. It's that kind of the, value-based, culture that they're looking for. They need more of those people, more of those voices on those campuses, showing people. It's not even a political thing. I think it's a love thing. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, one of the coaches was saying, she's got these kids up there, they're just standing there, just looking at their phones, and she's just like trying to connect with them. And then she gets one of our kids on campus, and they're so hungry for this opportunity. They value this opportunity. And we had a question that came in. I like the question, if we invest $400,000 into you as a student through our college need-based financial aid, what will you do with that opportunity? And I think this becomes clear to them when you write your personal essay, right? When you show them and tell them what you're bringing to the table. So case in point, we have a son that had to write his personal essay, and he talked about the legacy of his great-grandfather and how that has trickled down through the generations. And now it becomes his opportunity of, what is my legacy? What am I leaving behind? And so it was interesting that Stanford actually asked him to document, or to confirm through documentation, who his great-grandfather was and how he was going to move forward. And I must say, as we're working as ed consultants, it's such a blessing to read these kids' personal statement, to hear of the conviction and the purpose and the passion that they have. It makes me feel like, man, where was I at that time?
Were we even in the realm of that kind of maturity? I know I wasn't.
That's why we're learning late. Lifelong learners here, okay, guys? But,
it's inspiring.
It makes me a believer of what these kids can do. And I honestly got to say that in this day and age, we need kids that stand up. We need kids that speak out. We need kids that call others out and hold them accountable. And I just love it that we have the blessing of working with these families of kids that have been raised in a culture that desire to go beyond our little community here in Utah, in our families, and share, right, with the nation and the world of the goodness that they can do. So I applaud you, young kids. They're fantastic.
Yeah, this generation coming through, get out of their way, man. They're going to do some amazing things. They're going to save us all, really. Another point I wanted to make was part of the reason why Utah is so unique. So if you weren't Polynesian, but Utah, you're from Utah, there's so many things that make you so unique, different. I mean, there aren't people walking around on this earth that are like you. You're very unique. And one example would be in the personal essay and some of the supplemental writing that's in the application. some of these applications. It's important that you list down, so activities and things that you're involved in is one of those things that I asked for. It gives you about 10 spots to put in activities that you were involved in. This is to paint a picture so they understand who you are and what you're about, what you're passionate about. And I've been able to share with most of the people who are from the LDS faith that start journaling every experience that you have in young women, every experience that you have in young men. And as you're praying for others, figuring out how you would minister to them, and then you make assignments, and then you follow up with assignments. How was that received? All those types of things. What effect did we have? Okay, what other help do they need? These are the types of experiences that if you start putting down and journaling, that when you come to the application, you're going to be able to tell a powerful story.
Mm-hmm. I agree, Alema. And even with our children and youth initiative, those four main areas, physical, spiritual, intellectual, and social, are guides for you to be a well-rounded person, right? For you to be able to grow and develop in each of those areas and be able to set yourself up to be ready for these opportunities. And that's what's great about where we're at with our kids. Many of them are doing seminary, and seminary is actually looked at as academic rigor, meaning that in addition to carrying all your classes, honors classes, AP classes, concurrent enrollment, you have done 4 years of additional study. And so that in and of itself kind of raises the bar again as you being an applicant.
Makes you so different. There's no one else being seminary students and becoming actual, professional ministers after high school. That's in essence what you are, because you've graduated seminary. So it's an amazing thing that you're doing. No one else does this in the world, but you guys do.
Right. So service and leadership, don't sneeze at that. This is a culture that we live daily. And so we think that everybody lives like this, but they don't. In fact, many of you that are in larger families, that are babysitting, caring for your brothers and sisters, helping out around the home, those things are also traits and characteristics that they value as well.
They love that. They love that you're working at McDonald's. They love that you're babysitting at, I couldn't get a job. I couldn't even go participate in some of those clubs because I had to rush home to take care of my little brother and my little sister. Those stories are gold to them. But it has to all equate to, at the end of the story, when they're done reading that application, they need to have a great feel for what's been important to you and how you've lived your life up to that point. So,
well, I think we've hopefully shed some light on where the money's at and how you can get your child's education funded. We also are, Alema wanted to.
No, I just had another thing before you close right now. So all this aid that's available, we're giving you a list of 50 schools to give financial aid, great schools. Some are liberal arts schools, smaller schools, others are big, the world's best schools, right? The Ivy League. We also have understand that there's probably 10 of those schools that also give aid to international students. So for those of you who are tuning in from Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, from New Zealand or Australia, international students, there's a list, and most of the Ivy Leagues are on that list. They give 100% needs-based financial aid for international students as well. You just got to get in.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, hopefully we've kind of given you something to think about, something to share. If there's any way that we can help you, please look at our contact information. We have a Facebook page that also lists a lot of information there. And we hope to visit with you again. So anything else you wanted to add, Alema?
No, thank you for your patience. Facebook Live is our first one tonight, but we're enjoying it. We're enjoying answering all the questions. We're going to do this a little bit more often and feel it's going to be a help to our community, so get everybody on the same page.
Manuia.
Manuia.